is for Wave 3 providers to benefit from the experience of a Wave 1 provider. Examine 5 key themes of strategic leadership in preparation for September 2022. To analyse where you are now against where you should be, and to provide the opportunity to network with other Wave 3 providers. So as you can see, this afternoon's session is based around 5 strategic themes, which after consultation with Wave 2 providers were decided to be priorities in terms of your planning. Some of you may be far ahead with this, and others may realise that you still have a lot to do. So the format of this afternoon's session is that we're going to have some festive Menti questions to help set the scene. We're then going to have a presentation from Ruth Coyle from La Retraite School. Following this, you'll have the opportunity to have a Q&A with Ruth, and then we will go into breakout rooms to discuss issues arising from the presentation and your current position in terms of planning. There will then be some feedback on the breakout session, followed by a presentation from Chris Cherry, who will summarise the factors to consider for each of these strategic themes. So it's quite a busy agenda. Okay. So 2 for employee engagement, 1 for professional readiness, and 1 for entry criteria. Okay, thank you. That sets the scene. All right, and so without further ado, may I pass you on to Ruth.
Okay, good afternoon, everybody. So I'm Ruth Coyle from La Retraite Sixth Form. We're based in South London, between Balham and Clapham South. Hopefully you can all see my screen. So you can see that you've got our website address, which you can go to, which will show you about all things T Level. So this was one of the things that we did when we started to launch the T Levels, is we developed a new website for the Sixth Form with information about T Levels, because obviously these are brand new qualifications. So people need a lot of information about them, what they are, how they're structured, etc. So if you go to our website and you go to the T Level section, you'll actually see that we've created our own prospectus for T Levels. So we've got a Sixth Form prospectus, but then we've got a separate T Level prospectus, which goes into a bit more detail about what T Levels are, etc., and the different courses that we offer. So currently we're offering the digital, the childcare and education, and we also offer the transition course, which we call the Route to 3 course. And next year we're starting construction, health, midwifery, and then the following year with the media. So obviously that's something you need to think about with your marketing, getting all your materials ready out to your new applicants, etc. Before we actually started the T Levels a couple of years ago, we had a big launch event where we invited the parents, the students, our business partners. This was kind of life before COVID. And we had our business partners speak at the event, and it created a real buzz around the T Level. So I would kind of recommend doing well, at the moment it's kind of a bit difficult, isn't it, with the Omicron, but maybe hopefully in the spring you'll be able to get more of a big event going, because then that creates a big excitement around the T Levels. So another thing which is really good for your marketing is that you can bid for capital funding with the T Levels. So we've had 2 successful capital bids so far. So our first capital bid was for us to be able to offer the digital childcare T Level and the transition course, and we refurbed a building, so we've got like a brand new Sixth Form centre out of that. And the students have got like a bespoke digital suite. It's good to actually go and visit the particular industry, whatever T Level that you're delivering. So for the digital classroom, we had a link with Google, and we work quite closely with the livery companies. So if you're based in London, they're a good organisation to link up with. So we visited Google offices and we made sure the classroom was set up like the Google offices. The students have got the 2 screens. They've got walls around that they can write on, because that's how they work at Google. They just brainstorm on the wall, and they've got a Google Jamboard. Then the childcare room, we have that set up like a nursery. So they've got a little reading corner here. They've got real care babies. And with each T level, as well as the capital bid, you can get a specialist equipment fund to kind of kit out the room as well. And again, this is very good for your marketing because, you know, we're an old school that's been established a long time. So we're competing with other organisations that are brand new builds. So we wanted something that was a bit of a wow factor. You can see here in the childcare room, they've got their own little kitchen area and tables where we can bring in small children to do activities with, etc. So that's good for your marketing when you're having your open days, you're getting the wow factor. And then we've got new study facilities. And as I say, in the future, we've just won another capital bid for construction and health midwifery. So that build will start soon. And the midwifery will have, they'll have like a mock ward. For the construction, they'll have like a studio and, you know, all the equipment for CAD, CAM, etc. And then in January, we will put a further capital bid in for media. So it's definitely worth putting the capital bids in, and that information is released every January, and you have to have the bids put in by March to get those facilities, which will really help with your marketing. When you're thinking about which courses to choose, we chose courses that we knew in our particular area there was a skill shortage. So we knew there was a skill shortage with the digital. So a lot of our students wanted to do childcare, then went off to college. So we thought if we did childcare here, then we would keep them. Again, huge shortage in construction, and we're an all-girls school, so we wanted to encourage more people into construction. We have a lot of our students apply for midwifery in the future. So again, we thought that was a really good course to offer, and media is a really popular course in our sixth form already. So think about your centre and think about what T levels are most suitable for your centre and meet the needs of your students, because obviously you're not going to, you know, offer all of the T levels. And think about the employers you already have kind of contacts with. And also for you as an organisation, it opens up, you know, new opportunities. So like obviously I help out with the AoC now. We also work with the ETF. We've become a training centre for the digital T levels. So that means other people will come here, teachers, to get trained to deliver the digital T levels. And then we also, as the first providers, we work with the DFD to create this website. So there's a link to it on the presentation, which can get sent out to you. And everything on that website takes you through all the stages you need to go through to set up a T level. And there's examples from all of the first providers of how they did it. So that's really useful, that website, because that's something that we never had. We just had to kind of figure it out for ourselves. But I think that website's a really useful starting point. So the first starting point for us was actually developing the curriculum, because obviously T levels are completely brand new qualifications and they're different from current qualifications. We knew that the digital will be more of a challenge for us because obviously there's a shortage of teachers that can deliver high quality programming. So we applied to the ETF for something called a Teacher Regional Improvement Project, and we actually got 45,000 for that. So you can apply for these projects because this is work that you're going to be doing anyway. So basically we worked with these organisations close to us to basically upskill the IT teachers so they could then develop the curriculum for this digital T level. And obviously all these other organisations were keen to get involved because they wanted to develop their staff. And the ETF, they provide all the training free. So they'll give all of your staff the training for free. If you want bespoke courses, they'll come in and deliver bespoke courses. And also working with other schools or colleges is really good because then you're building up a professional development network. So we worked with these organisations and we worked with business partners. And then we basically developed case studies to deliver the digital T level. And we focused on the digital because obviously there's a huge skill shortage in that area. So how we kind of started off And when you look at the T-level specification, you'll see that it's very technical and it's very bang up to date with industry, because obviously it's been written by employers. So we knew that our teachers needed to get into industry first, so that would help them understand the specification. So the ETF pay for your teachers £400 a day to go and do industry insights. So your teachers can either go out during term time and the money goes to the school, or some of our teachers chose to go out during their holiday time and we paid them. And that partnership work was built up with the businesses. Businesses are much more likely to take a teacher on a placement, and then you can build the partnership up that way rather than taking a student on a placement. So all our teachers went out on placement first of all. Then we worked with those businesses to create case studies to deliver the digital T-level, and then working with some of those employers then led on to them offering student placement. So that's a good way to approach employers. We used to have to cold call employers, but now the apprenticeship service actually sends you employers that want to provide industry placements. But you will have employers that you currently work with, you know, for careers fairs, etc. So, you know, talk to them about it. Don't say, oh, will you take a student for 45 days, because that will just scare them off. Just say, oh, would you like to take one of our teachers? And then you can kind of build up the relationship that way. So as I said, we all did kind of industry insights, and our staff that are going to be involved now in the construction and the health, they're starting to do them, and the media. So everybody's finding out what's happening in industry right now. And then, as I said, that then builds a relationship with the employer. We had the employers came in to visit the school, then they helped us write the case studies, and it's quite good for the employer because they feel that they're contributing to the education, and it's good for them to be recognised within your qualification. Another thing that we're doing, we have a big glass staircase in the middle of the school, and we're putting all the employer logos on it and that we work with. So again, you know, employers like that kind of thing, they can put that on their website, etc. So as I said, currently we're offering the digital, the childcare, the education, and the route to 3. Now, when it comes to marketing the T-levels, I would say one thing you need to get across to the students is it's not just one subject. So on our digital T-level, we have a business teacher, an IT teacher, and a programming teacher, because the students will be like, but my friend's choosing 3 subjects. So get across to them, they're not just doing the one subject all of the time. And on the childcare and education T-level, we have a health teacher, a psychology teacher, and a biology teacher delivers on that. So I think that helps with the marketing as well, kind of selling the subject. On the construction T-level, we're going to have a business teacher, a science teacher, and a DT teacher. And on the health T-level, that's a physics, chemistry, biology teacher. So start planning out your staffing so you can kind of build the team now of who's actually going to be delivering the course. What you can do with employers to start to get them involved is you can do some challenges with your current students. So obviously with COVID, with our digital students, we did some virtual activities with employers. So we worked with the railway delivery group. The students had to create an app for the railway delivery group and then work in teams to deliver their presentation. And the railway delivery group judged that. This was all done in one day, and it was all an activity that was done virtually. So employers like that because it's quite an easy way for them to help you and contribute to the curriculum. Getting guest speakers, like for our childcare, we use staff within our school to speak to the students. They go out and visit some schools and we take them out to various activities. And then when it comes to the industry placements, it's really important that you prepare your students before they go out on placement. So one of the key things we did when we started the T-levels is we employed a business engagement officer. So we've got a full-time member of staff. That's her role, is to engage with businesses. Since we've employed her, she's also taken on other roles. So now she does UCAS in the school, she does careers right through from year 7 to 13. So, you know, you can also build other activities into that role. So we work with an organisation called Spiral in Lambeth that kind of prepares the students for going out on their placements. And currently we've got the digital students, all of the year 13 digital students are out on placement, and all of the year 13 education and childcare. We did have a situation with the digital where some of them had to do it online, but the government is saying at the minute 40% of digital can be online, which is fine. But yeah, that all seems to be going well at the minute, and we're going to start getting the year 12s out now in January. So these are some of the kind of skills that Spiral do with the students to kind of get them ready for going out on placements. They're kind of doing a bit of teamwork there. As I said, we work very closely with the livery companies. So if you go to this Delivery Schools link, they have a platform that you can go on and you can request talks from different employers, careers workshops, play virtual placements, physical placements. So obviously the livery covers a wide range of occupations, and they work with Inspiring the Future and Speakers for Schools. So it's a really good resource, the Delivery Schools link. So do go on that to try and get employers. Through the Delivery Schools, we've worked with David Barker, and we also use his program called Tech Centre Training, which delivers certified CPD to our students. So our digital students do this. These are CPD modules that you would do if you actually went and started a real job, and you get accreditation for them. And we've got an example of one of our students. She's got a certificate from Tech Centre Training. So this is something that then showing the employer that your students are really serious and they're really professional and they're actually ready to go out on placement. It's something they can add to their CV, etc. Now, with regard to the staff, when you're introducing T levels, it's a whole change to the whole staff of your school, because they are all careers advisors. And by the time we introduce our 5 T levels, the only department in the school that will not be involved is MFL. So you need to think of it as a whole organisational change and explain to the whole staff about T levels. Most of our staff took part in the ETF training about what T levels were, etc. And then those actually delivering it took part in more intensive CPD with the ETF. But if you look on the ETF website, there's loads of courses you can do. There's courses for governors, there's courses for your admin team. So yeah, just get as many people as possible on the ETF courses. And make it part of your school teaching and learning strategy. So we have working parties in our school for different things like AoC, numeracy, and T levels is one of our working parties. So it's got to be part of the organisation as a whole, really. And then in terms of the progress of the students, they've done extremely well. So all of our students that we took onto the T levels, they all had a 4 in maths and English. So I know the government's removed that requirement now, but we would still want them to have the 4 in maths and English to go onto the T level. Those that have not yet got the 4 go on to our transition course, which is called Route to 3, which is like a 1-year course. And then they can progress onto the T level after that, because they need that bit of extra time, really. I was surprised at how well the students did. They do their core exams at the end of year 12, and then they just do a project in year 13. So 100% of our students passed, 60% of the childcare got A grades, and 40% got A grades on the digital. Now, those students with their average point score, if they'd done A levels, they would never have got those grades. And I think that is because everything the students are doing is applied to the workplace, so it makes it much more accessible to the students. Also, they've got a real passion for the area that they're going into. So I know some people are a bit scared about whether your students will be able to cope on T levels, but they will, and they will really surprise you and rise to the challenge. So we're really pleased. They're some of our A grade students on results day. And as I said, this is the transition course that we offer as well. So those students you've got that have not yet got their maths and English, we call it Route to 3. So basically, it's where they redo their maths and English. At the moment, we only give them 3 periods of maths and 3 periods of English. Next year, we're going to up that to 6 periods of maths and 6 periods of English because of COVID. The progress in maths and English, we think, needs more of a boost. And then along with that, they do the OCR technical in digital media and the OCR technical in business. So that's like another 2 GCSEs they get. Those are both coursework based, so they don't have the pressure of an exam. And then they do work experience in the area that they want to go into. So obviously we're a school, so we're quite small. So we put all of our Route to 3 students in the same course, but one might be doing a childcare placement, one might be doing a construction placement, but they're all doing their maths and English, and they're all developing their digital skills, which are generic across all of the T levels. So I think this is a good programme to get your students ready for the T levels. And then it means you can keep them for 3 years in the sixth form as well, which is obviously more revenue for your sixth form. These will be the entry requirements we would give for the transition. We wouldn't take people with 2s because we think it's too hard to move them from a 2 to a 4. So that's kind of the level that you're looking at really for your entry requirements for your transition. And as I said, this is a really good website. So if you're starting, this will take you through all the steps that you need to do. And this has been written by all of the Wave 1 providers, and it's got lots of help and guidance and lots of examples on there. So yeah, I don't know if anybody's got any questions they want to ask me.
I thought that was excellent. Thank you.
Can I ask a question that's come into us, please, Ruth?
Yeah.
What are the common misconceptions people have of T levels, and how would you recommend we combat those misconceptions?
I think from talking to a lot of providers, they think that their current vocational students won't be able to cope with the T level. They will. It's about how you design the curriculum, because you know your students, and it's about making sure you choose those students that have a real passion for that area that they're going into. Because like one of our T level ambassadors, Leah, she's actually dyslexic, and she said she would never have achieved those grades on A levels, but because the T level, because she's in the workplace practically doing it, whatever she's learning theory wise makes a lot more sense, and it's a lot easier for them to access the technical terminology.
Thank you. Does anybody else have any more questions? Because we've had a couple sent in to us.
Leon's got his hand up.
Thank you very much for that presentation. I think one of the questions I'd like to ask you as a school sixth form is, did you have students who were determined to do A levels but were persuaded onto the T levels, and what would be the best way for you to do that?
Not really, because we obviously, when we did the presentation, we showed, there's a little video from the DFE that shows students out on their placements in the different sectors, and I was like, if that's more you, if you're more a practical person and that appeals to you, being, you know, in sixth form 4 days a week and out at work 1 day a week, then that's the route for you. And then I think because we had the employers there, especially from the livery companies, that were actually saying the things they care about now is the skills that students have. You know, they're not that bothered about A-level results or degrees. It's about the skills that young people bring. So I think if you've got employers there saying that to students and parents, it carries a lot of weight.
Thank you very much.
And of course, you don't get the £50,000 of debt either.
There's Ruth, there's something in the chat as well from Robert Myatt. He's saying, I assume the core exam grades are tags, so would we expect the grade boundaries to be adjusted in 2022 to reflect more comparable with A levels?
I think what the exam boards did for us, they actually, obviously there was some sample materials on the exam board websites that we were using throughout to kind of get the children ready for the final exam. But when it came to the final exam, the exam board provided us with that examination, and we actually did it, you know, in controlled conditions. So it was just like they would have been doing the real exam, and then obviously the mark scheme, and then we had to send it all off, and it was all moderated. So I would say it would be the same, really.
Okay, thank you. There's another question coming as well. Do you have staff who teach on the transition program and the T level, and have you found that beneficial if they do?
Yeah, so we've got some of our staff, we're quite lucky in a way because a lot of our staff teach on A level and vocational courses as well. And I think that really helps with the T level because the exam is based on assessment objectives like A levels are. So they're used to teaching students in that style to pass an exam. And then we have teachers on the transition program who then would take those students on the level 3 program so they know what they're kind of preparing them for.
Okay, thanks Ruth. I don't know if anybody else wants to put their hand up and ask a question. Oh, Mary, have you got another one?
Yeah, Ruth, could you just give us 3 top tips that you would say strategic managers should be looking at moving forward?
So the key appointment is your business engagement officer. You've got to have that person in post, and you know they can sort of access all your current business links and then look for new ones. I think establish now who the staff are going to be that are going to be delivering the T level, and they need to start with the training now, and you need to be giving them some off timetable days to develop the curriculum really. And hopefully in the spring term, if you're able to host an event with parents and businesses and students, so you can create a bit of buzz and excitement around the T levels, you know, and I'd definitely put in for the capital bid. You know, you've got nothing to lose really. Everybody can improve their facilities.
Would you have found it hard if you hadn't had the capital bid to sell the T levels?
Yeah, we wouldn't have been able to do it because we just didn't have anywhere to deliver it. So that was crucial for us.
Right, that's very useful to know. Thank you, Ruth. Thank you.
Tony, I think we're handing back to you now.
Okay. All right, then to follow on from that, we thought we'd have a very brief breakout rooms just to discuss that in a bit more depth. So
can we just thank Ruth first, because I think Ruth's got to go.
Oh, yeah. Beg your pardon, Ruth.
Yeah.
No problem.
So thank you very much, Ruth.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Bye.
Sorry, Ruth. Thank you. Yeah, so we're just going to go into some breakout rooms just to have a bit more of an in-depth chat to see where you are, what perhaps this presentation has made you think about, what actions you need to take in this remaining, well, 9 months really.
So we had that discussion about employer incentives, and then we then sort of just a little bit about recruitment, and there was a disappointment from a couple of providers who didn't receive the capital bids, so therefore the recruitment of promising a shiny new building is not now necessarily going to happen. But then sort of just sharing ideas about open evenings, parents and students open evenings to raise awareness of the T levels, and we also talked about sort of incentives that some people have done, tea parties or tea events where they get employers in to try and sell the T levels to them. So that was the things that we were discussing in the breakout room. So I'll stop talking and let you sort of respond to that and then carry on with your presentation.
Okay, let's do that then. So yeah, there's the employer engagement bit is a significant at the moment, and the employers have the same discussion as well. So another hat that I wear in the employer support package, again DFE funded, a lot of the employers have the same thing about their ability to offer T levels, and obviously their element of it is focused primarily around the industry placement. But without the placement, we can't have the T level. Without the T level employer, we can't have. You know, so it's a mutual thing both ways. And they have, because it's so small at the moment, because there's only, you know, it's in the thousands of young people, but it's going up to, well, where's the target sitting? 20, 30, 40,000 in 3 to 4 years time, where, you know, assuming that, you know, the outside environment, as it were, neutralizes somewhat. It does put pressure, I think, on those conversations. So, all right, let me do my little introduction then to presentation, and obviously take questions if there are any as we go through as well. So I'm just going to just put the slideshow on. Should be 5 strategic leadership themes, which have already been discussed and talked about. Fantastic. So there they are. And I've highlighted the one that we've been focusing on, which is employer engagement in the main. So what I'm going to talk about now for the next sort of 10, 15 minutes or so is already some food for thought issues and some things to take away and think about, perhaps to have a question or two about before we close today, that have come from other events like this. So other employer engagement events, other provider events, going right back to the opening of the sort of T-level discussions way back in 2017-18, and then obviously the first commissioning in 1920. So let's have a look at the 5 themes in a bit more detail then. So there's a few bullet points in each one, just as issues and themes to have a think about. I'll try and give some context to those as well. So I'll do it in the order they're shown rather than the order of importance, because they're all, I think, all equally important. One of the key ones is around like marketing and then progression. Sometimes I might think, well, how does marketing and progression sit together? Well, obviously, if you're going to describe a program to a young person or their parents or their peers or to teachers or to employers, interested stakeholders, the so what question is, well, what can I do with it? What's the point of doing this? Where does it take me? Where do I go? So the progression is like a subset of the marketing. So this is what we're hearing. This is what's happening out there amongst, I mean, in terms of providers, colleges, schools, and employers as well, is they are new, but they're also one of the big planks. So we have to engage with T-levels. We have to get our heads around it, because it's not a marginal program. It's not something to one side or an alternative. It's not a few more apprenticeship standards. This is something major and a major investment. So we have to get our head around this first of all. And obviously, we have to have convincers in marketing to peers, parents, teachers, and others. So why would you want to do this instead of an A-level, or as an alternative to an A-level, or as an alternative to an apprenticeship? Because an apprenticeship, we now have a well-trodden path with standards through to higher education, highly vocationalized, right in the employer sweet spot. How do T-levels supplement and not replace? And some of the larger employers who have, he talks about NHS having mandated numbers. Some larger employers have mandated numbers for work experience and placements, and they're wondering how this might affect apprenticeships and other programs as well. We want to have employer pull. So we want employers to be saying, well, when can we have our occupational specialisms? We are a construction, we are in media and the arts, we are in accounting. When do we get our specialism? We want them to have an appetite for it, and therefore we need to make it popular for them. How do we, as I said, add choice, not dilute options? So it's very clear, if you know the detail, that a T-level is quite distinct from an A-level and quite distinct from an apprenticeship. It's being created as the missing third way from all the research we've done over the last 10 years or so, with various reports on vocational skills, employer engagement, working with employers. This is the solution to it, which seems to fit best. But how do you make sure it is seen as another option, not as replacement for something else? So my post bag is full up with employers saying, but does that mean we stop taking on apprentices? Or college teams saying, just remind me again how T-levels offer an alternative to an A-level program or an apprenticeship. How can I market that differently to who I need to? And obviously there's an element of differentiation. So there's a lot of learning stuff out there, choices at 16, but how to make the right choice? How do we differentiate individual learners who become, an ideal T-level learner? There's no demographic that suits T-levels more than others. T-levels are going to identify additional learning needs, send issues because of the nature of the team training and assessment element and the teaching and learning bit as well. There's going to be some travel to placements. There's going to be other skills that have to be developed, digital skills. That doesn't mean using Microsoft Office. They're going to have to get around to be able to survive. So how do we make sure that we giving best advice to learners as well? And then the progression question, of course, is does HE really understand what T-level can bring? A number of universities are showing some uncertainty about the value of a T-level. Clearly, we haven't got any tried and tested T-level outcomes yet, so it's still thinking. But again, how does that kind of UCAS link get properly made? Okay, so the progression-y bit, the other half of marketing progression. So in terms of what happens next, they are untested, untried. There is, as I said, some lingering complexity about HE entrance. And that's a term that I've seen in a couple of reports about universities saying, yeah, we get it. We're just not certain how this is going to work. How can we actually equate this to our traditional A-level grade? We've just got our heads around GCSE and A-level grading. How do we fit this in as well? What about us being able to create pathways to higher education, therefore? So maybe through the employed route. So how do we show how a T-level can support, a level 5 or a level 6 apprenticeship, a higher technical apprenticeship further down the track? Because those pathways and those occupational specialisms don't yet currently align. We don't have occupational specialisms for everything feeding into an apprenticeship, so we're kind of compromising a bit for the first few years. Even though we've got another dozen or so occupational specialisms in 22, we've got another 15 more after that in 23. We probably end up with about 40 or so. We'll be getting close, or closer. One of the things that this links to the employee engagement is the talent pipeline. So I try before I buy. I'll take on a T-level learner. In my head as an employer, does that mean I'm kind of taking them on? And if it turns out and works well, I'll recruit them afterwards. That's something that's still yet to be tested as well. And obviously then, do employers want to employ my T-level learner? I might even take them before they finish their T-level. They're really good, because I might be able to move them onto an apprenticeship program, as has happened, I think, in a couple of cases. About, well, is this a way in which we can move them on to something else? That's a discussion as well about replacement. Anyway, so in the employee engagement question, so I know I've heard it, we've obviously had a good discussion primarily around this. So these are a couple of issues that are kind of still bubbling around employers. So reluctance to embrace a new program. I'll wait a bit, see how it turns out before I commit to it. I've got a couple of construction employers that are saying, yeah, we'd love to jump in this, but let's see some data first. Let's see a proof of concept before we go wholesale into this as well. Again, that conflict with other programs. We've got traineeships and Kickstart. We're very comfortable with how they are different. Employers may not necessarily be so, because they just see placement. So they've got a certain number of days immersed in doing it. What's the real difference between Kickstart, traineeships, well, obviously apprenticeships is an employment element, but in terms of T-levels as well. And the issue talked about geographical and sectoral isolation. Here I am down in Penzance. My local college doesn't offer the occupational specialism I want. I'm going to have to go to London for it. I'm 16 years old. That ain't going to work. How am I going to be able to do that? How do I overcome the barrier of geographical and sector isolation? And it's a small issue and it's a big issue. Depends, it's a government level issue for national planning, but it's a small issue because here I am based in Penzance. I want to do a T-level, but I'm actually barred from doing it because no one around me does it, and certainly won't be doing it in the next 2 or 3 years as well. Again, that question about untested, we haven't got enough data of success to demonstrate that yet, but I'm sure it's coming. Again, the talent pipeline I mentioned, same cross issue with marketing is, well, if you go for T-level on the marketing front, you'll probably get picked up as an employee and you'll have a job there waiting for you. Is that true from the employer side as well? And again, employers wanting to employ T-level learners, is that something that's part of the deal early on? There's an expectation that they stay on with you as well. And so we do a number of, with an SDN hat on, well, wrong way, that one, a number of webinars around employer engagement, and the same issues come up time and again, and they're crystallised into this. Who looks after them? So who they belong to? How much admin and faff is it going to be to do it? What about the paperwork, including safeguarding and insurance and all of that? And will the students be high caliber? I'm hearing from the government that T-levels are a big thing. That's a first choice program. They'll have a good crop of GCSEs. I understand that. Is that what I'm going to get as a T-level learner as well? So that's some bubbling around issues as well. So it's something to think about in your own planning to preempt some of these, because there are many, many positives for T-levels. And, we focus a lot on the deficits, don't we, in these kind of things, about fixing things that aren't right. There's huge plus sides. The case studies are fantastic, and do have a look at some of the employer case studies if you haven't already. There are some really, really good ones as well. Okay, just conscious of time. So entry criteria, relatively straightforward, this one. And you heard a little bit from Ruth earlier on about her concerns about which grade of maths and English do we enter with? How do we expect to develop their English and maths over time? How far up the scale do we need to go? So they're designed to be rigorous and challenging, and they need to be. So many colleges have already declared, we will not take on anybody that hasn't got a grade 4 or better GCSE, particularly maths, but maths and English as well. They set that as an entry point anyway. But remember, we're looking at, obviously, we're not looking at exit grades so much now, entry grades. So do we set grade 4 or grade 3? Do we set grade 5? And what's the rationale for doing it? Why would we need to say this is the grade we need? Because. Some occupational specialisms are very dependent on maths and English, others are less so. So again, is there some flex around that? Would there be something that we can do in terms of teaching, learning and training to help fix? You heard Ruth say, we reckon we can move from a 3 to a 4, but probably not from a 3 to a 5 or from a 2 to a 4. So again, questions to ask yourselves as well. We're not trying to repeat the old GCSE repeat mistakes that we've made in the past. It doesn't work, and it's not the role of colleges to fix maths if it's not, you know, central to how we want our T levels to work as well. We've obviously got parental and learner aspirations. They want this to be a proper program with a meaningful outcome as well. So, you know, setting the bar high enough, I think, demonstrates the fact that this is a proper program that's not, you don't end up doing a T level, which I have heard a couple of colleagues say, will they end up doing T levels as opposed to something more meaningful? And it makes me cringe and worry, but that's where we are sometimes. And again, when I think from a curriculum and planning point of view, trying to link us now to the curriculum question, is that initial and diagnostic assessment need to be not better, a little bit focused for T-level learners, because it's going to identify some learner support issues that we may not have picked up on up to now. Initial assessment, picking up the ability to travel, the willingness to do examinations, projects, vocational tests, being observed by people they haven't met before. Again, Ruth talked about the examination process. Some learners did better at the T-level examinations than they would have done on the equivalent A-level because it felt a little bit more focused for them, a bit more contextualized. So again, channeling learners through the diagnostic assessment to a T-level where they can be perfectly capable of the A-level, but it makes more sense for them as well. Okay, moving on to area 4. So a couple of diagrams here rather than words from me. So curriculum planning. So you hear Ofsted will talk about sequencing and curriculum intent and implementation and impact. So how do we get individual placements planned when we've got a group? I'll give a number. We've got 12 in our group in front of me. We've got 12 different employees, all with a different placement requirement, different start time, different incoming skills needs. It's a nightmare for planning the curriculums. Like some construction employees don't come to us until April next year because the weather's going to be pretty rubbish and we don't have any projects on. The finance might say, well, actually don't come to us in January because it's tax season. Don't be doing that. And you might have a digital employer saying, hey, come Wendo week from day one. It'd be nice to meet them. They can come through the whole 2 years and we make it, you know, part of it. That's all very different approaches as well. So that sequencing bit as well. How meaningful can we make the core training and occupational specialism training before a placement so we don't have disappointment at the back end? Employers go, but goodness me, they don't know anything. We basically had to retrain them. That's what we're trying to avoid as well. Nor leaving placements so late in the day that actually all the assessment is being done and the learners can't learn it. They can't use any of the context of their placements to support their project work, which is obviously would be a great thing to do. So I'm just going to fire up some diagrams. This is being recorded, so you might want to go back and just do a freeze frame on these diagrams here. So here's some different alternatives of curriculum that have come from real colleges and like, for example, like Retraite earlier on. Core knowledge, core skills done in year 1, get the exams out of the way. That's the model that you saw earlier on. And then have the occupational specialism entirely in the second year along with the placement. So it all becomes vocational. We get the year's rigorousness out the way, rigorousness out the way, and then year 2 becomes the specialism. And we bring in all sorts of bits and pieces. Maybe we do a couple of days on the placement, get to know you, get to build in, get to know some project work, and then pay off in year 2. That's a complex examination setup. Let's try another one, a slightly different version of the same thing across year 1 and year 2, where we actually take a bit more time over the core. We don't rush to exams at the end of year 1. We have all the examinations at the end of year 2. Higher risk, but higher likelihood of success if we plan the curriculum. And we actually start the placement when we've got most of the learning done, but haven't had the examinations. They haven't banked any exams. They're just holding fire on those, hoping that obviously those grades will be as good as possible. And the occupational specialism becomes the hub of the training. So they become, if you like, mini employees. We create a culture of vocational rather than crash bang roll up the examinations at the start. These are just alternatives. Neither is better than the other. And here's another example. It's another different one that I see. Sorry, the slides just seem to have gone to a slightly different shape here. Again, where we start to compartmentalize, we break up the core and occupational specialism and do modules of related study. So we're doing IT skills, or we're doing planning skills or doing something else. We're bringing bits of the curriculum that fall together in chunks. And again, examinations then can be slightly more flexible. Some AOs, awarding organisations, offering examinations in January, February. Some are just doing it at the end of the year. So again, that becomes a constraint as well as a potential. And again, where the industry placement comes in can be very varied. So I'll just show those slides to show you that the curriculum is very flexible and can be very flexible. We make it hard sometimes. Sometimes we simply have to do it a certain way because our timetabling is just too complicated. And I did that about 10 years ago when I was last in a college. I was VP responsible for curriculum, and by God, it became a nightmare, rooming nightmare. And I ended up with A4 and A9, the two rooms that always seemed to not quite work for me. It was really difficult to plan something like this. And I think would have struggled to have got a meaningful T-level curriculum in place without being super flexible and having the goodwill of many folk in doing so. Okay, so finally, strategic area 5, the professional readiness element. So it's interesting that this was picked up as an area of need, again, because typically this should be a seamless program, and suddenly think, hang on a minute, there are technical occupational skills we may not have. We may not have teams who are credible with employers. When was the last time you were on a construction site? I heard in one discussion I went with a college team to an employer. It wasn't being a challenge. They said, out of interest, how do you know us? How can you help us do the training? So where we've got employer and sector credibility and currency. So an employer might say, well, we talk to the colleges, they kind of know their technical stuff, but they don't really know how to make it work in practice. And that's not our modern building site, for example. So where's the skills audit and the gap analysis? How can we bring in employers to support the teaching and learning component, make them part of the curriculum as well? And therefore, what skills do we actually need? When we come to plan a program starting 2022, what skills do we need? And so we see a number of skills needed. So for curriculum development, so not just timetabling, but actually delivering particular elements of specialist skills in occupational specialisms. What about the technical support? So how things are done, way computers work in a particular workplace, how CAD is done, or actually how accountancy really kind of does the work that we do, for example. What about student support, actually helping learners be supported? Have we got student services teams right? Have we enough training in place for T levels? What about the relationship with employers, not just engagement, but the ongoing relationship with employers in all elements of T-level planning? A couple of colleges who've managed to make employee engagement work have understood how employers can, if you like, turn around rather than being recipients of T-levels, they're actually part of the planning on the demand side, if you like, who are talking to parents about T-levels, talking about the benefits of doing industry placements, for example. So that's kind of really where I'm sort of sitting. This is sort of where we're getting to with professional readiness. And the last slide, I apologise for me, is again quite wordy. It's really now talking about systems and processes that support it as well. So how do we plan staff deployment? How do we plan for what systems and processes we need? So tracking and capturing information, sharing information. How does it fit with our other college systems as well? And that leads me down to HR. So HR is one area which always comes back to how do we fit into this? And HR teams seem very agitated about how T-levels are going to be properly resourced. So I flagged that up only because it's an interesting conversation to have about how clued in HR is in terms of planning for the future. So I'll stop there, Steve and Tony. So thank you for that. I'm happy if any questions to take any questions, or in fact, just to have be part of a discussion around some of those key themes.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Chris. That was very interesting. Thank you. Any questions?
I've just put a comment in the box, Tony, saying about the employer readiness that Chris was just talking about. Mm-hmm. And Ruth actually said at the end of her top tip was to make sure all the staff receive training on it, which I think is very useful.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah.
I don't know whether the providers here have started training the staff.
Steve, can I, whilst we're having a discussion, can I put a poll up on the screen? Because I know that Steve's just put a message in the chat saying that he needs to go, but if we can just put a poll just to capture any feedback about the event, we can still discuss whilst we're doing so as well, if that's okay.
If you could be completing that, please, everyone. Are there any other questions for Chris?
I'll just say on that, the staff training front, on the resources that we collected, put through, there are a lot of documents about training and support. So that give you checklists for staff readiness and checklists for skills audits as well. So I don't know, Steve or Tony, we can point people towards those resources as well, because they seem to have landed pretty well, and they give you some, even if you don't use the checklist as a tick box, give you some thoughts and ideas on the kind of issues for training and actually who needs training. You might be surprised at actually which staff have touch points with T levels as well.
Okay, yeah, we are sending now to all providers a monthly update, so we can make sure it's in there so that everybody has access to it.
Cool.
So thank you for that. Yeah.
Over to you again, Tony.
Thank you. I would just to end then. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, as I say, once again, Chris, for your contribution. That was really very interesting. And we will make sure that in the monthly updates, we should put the information in that Chris alluded to there. Just to finish, going forward, we are looking at networking meetings to move on in the future, but we need to, before we make any more notifications on regional network meetings, I think we're probably prudent to wait on COVID and see what the situation is on mixing. Do please remember, if you haven't already, to sign up for the course directory. I went on it the other day, and it was interesting that you know, a lot of colleges aren't on it, and some of the colleges coming up far away, so it could be in many respects the first place that lots of people look for your college or your school.